You know how it is.
Yeah.
You want to stay informed, get the important info,
Yeah.
but without feeling totally swamped by everything out there.
Exactly. Information overload is real.
Well, that's what we're doing today. We're diving deep into something you might just have sitting in your fridge right now and not thinking twice about it. Sauerkraut. Forget the hot dog topping idea for a second, because some recent science is suggesting this humble fermented cabbage, it could actually be a bit of a game changer for your gut health.
It really could. You sent over some great stuff, including that popular science piece looking at a study in applied and environmental microbiology.
Yeah, that one caught my eye. So our mission today, for you listening, is to pull out the key insights from these sources. Why might this tangy food be, way more important than maybe you thought?
Precisely. We want to unpack what the research says sauerkraut is actually doing, especially for the gut. By the end of this, you'll likely see it a bit differently.
Okay, let's start with the basics then. For anyone who isn't a sauerkraut aficionado, what exactly is this stuff?
It's pretty simple, really. Sauerkraut is just finely chopped cabbage mixed with salt, and then it's left to ferment.
Ferment, okay.
Yeah, and according to Ohio State's College of Food, Ag, and Environmental Sciences, that process usually takes about 3 to 6 weeks. It depends on the air temperature, mostly.
So it's not just like cabbage getting old in a jar.
No, definitely not. It's an active transformation. This fermentation process is key.
Right, okay. Fermentation. What's actually happening there? What's the biology behind it?
Well, that's where things get interesting. During fermentation, specific types of bacteria called lactic acid bacteria, they're actually the same kind you find in yogurt, which people are probably familiar with.
Okay, like the good bacteria.
Exactly. Those bacteria start to grow and multiply in that salty cabbage environment. And as they grow, they produce different byproducts. The main one is lactic acid.
Lactic acid.
Yeah.
That's what gives it that really distinctive, sharp, tangy flavor, right?
That's the one. Love it or tolerate it, like you said.
Well,
But it does more than just provide taste. Lactic acid also acts as a natural preservative. That's a big part of why sauerkraut lasts so long.
okay, so flavor and preservation,
Yeah.
all thanks to these microbes. Got it.
Yep. Little microbial powerhouses.
All right, so we've got fermented cabbage, lactic acid bacteria doing their thing.
Okay.
Now let's dig into this recent study you mentioned, the one from UC Davis. What were they trying to figure out?
So the researchers at UC Davis, they were really zeroing in on the metabolites in sauerkraut.
Metabolites. Remind us what those are again.
Sure. Metabolites are basically small molecules produced during metabolism. Think of them as the chemical results or like footprints left behind when organisms like bacteria or even the cabbage cells carry out their life processes.
Okay. Chemical footprints. I like that.
Yeah. And the main goal of the study was to compare the metabolites in sauerkraut versus those in just plain raw cabbage.
To see what changed during fermentation.
Exactly. How does fermentation alter the cabbage at that molecular level? And crucially for us today, do those changes offer any protective benefits for our gut cells? They published this in Applied and Environmental Microbiology April 7th, so it's pretty recent and, properly peer-reviewed science.
Good to know. So how did they test that? What was the experiment like?
Well, they took a few things. Raw cabbage, sauerkraut they bought from a store, sauerkraut they fermented themselves in the lab, and even the leftover liquid, the brine.
Okay.
Then they exposed intestinal cells like the ones lining your gut to these different substances. They wanted to see how the cells reacted, specifically looking at whether these substances could protect the cells from inflammation-related damage.
All right, the moment of truth. What did they find? Did the sauerkraut make a difference to those gut cells?
It really did. This was the key finding. The sauerkraut, and interestingly, both the store-bought kind and the lab-made stuff, showed a significant ability to help maintain the integrity of those intestinal cells.
Maintain integrity. What does that mean practically?
Think of your gut lining like a barrier, a really important one. It lets nutrients through but keeps harmful things out. Integrity means that barrier stays strong and isn't leaky. Damage can create gaps, which is linked to inflammation and other issues.
So sauerkraut helped keep that barrier strong.
Yes, significantly more than the raw cabbage did in their experiments. And like I said, it didn't seem to matter if it was fancy lab sauerkraut or the kind you pick up at the grocery store.
That is definitely good news for convenience sake. So just to sum that up for everyone listening, Sauerkraut seems to help keep our gut wall intact, which sounds like a pretty big deal for health.
It absolutely is.
And I think Maria Marco, one of the study authors, she connected this back to our own gut microbiome, didn't she?
She did, and this is a really fascinating part. Dr. Marco pointed out that some of the specific metabolites they found in the sauerkraut are actually very similar to metabolites produced by our own healthy gut microbes.
Oh, interesting. So it's not just adding good bacteria.
It's potentially more than that. It suggests the sauerkraut itself contains compounds that might mimic or support the beneficial activities already going on in your gut. It's like it's providing reinforcements or tool that your own gut ecosystem can use.
Wow. Okay, so it strengthens the link then between eating sauerkraut and having a healthier gut environment.
Exactly. It adds another layer to the story, suggesting it's not just about the live bacteria, but also about the chemical compounds created during fermentation. And again, this effect seemed consistent regardless of the source of the sauerkraut.
So the fermentation process itself is changing the cabbage in beneficial ways. You mentioned it changes the nutritional profile too. How does that work?
Yes, beyond just the lactic acid, their analysis showed that fermentation seems to increase the levels of other helpful metabolites. Things like certain amino acids, the building blocks for protein, and also various plant-based chemicals, phytochemicals that have been linked to gut health benefits.
Oh, it's like an upgrade.
Kinda, yeah. A nutritional upgrade via fermentation. This might also help explain why other fermented foods, like pickles or miso, are often associated with digestive wellness too. There seems to be a common theme with fermentation creating these beneficial compounds.
Makes sense. And they found a lot of these compounds, right? Didn't the article mention hundreds?
That's right, hundreds of different metabolites produced during that cabbage fermentation. It's quite complex chemically.
Wow.
And what's really exciting for the researchers now is trying to figure out which specific metabolites, or maybe combinations of them, are the real stars here. Which ones are most responsible for supporting long-term gut health?
So the work's not done yet. They know it's good, but they're still identifying the key players.
Precisely. They've opened up a really interesting area for further investigation into how these fermented foods work at a detailed level.
Okay, so based on what they do know now, did Dr. Marco offer any practical advice? Like, for you listening, how might you incorporate this?
She did offer a suggestion. Dr. Marco proposed that even just regular, maybe modest servings of sauerkraut, especially alongside a generally healthy diet with plenty of fiber from fruits and veggies, could potentially help with long-term protection against gut inflammation.
So making the gut more resilient.
Yeah, improving the resilience of your digestive tract. Her main point was really that we should perhaps start thinking about fermented foods like sauerkraut, not just as, a condiment you occasionally add, but as a regular part of a health-supporting diet.
That's definitely a shift in perspective. Makes you look at that jar in the fridge a bit differently.
Oh,
Okay, so what's next for this research team? Are they moving beyond the lab?
absolutely. The logical next step, and they're planning it, is human trials.
Oh,
They want to see if these gut protective metabolites they found in the lab experiments actually translate into real benefits when people consume sauerkraut as part of their everyday diet.
that makes sense. Lab results are great, but you need to see if it works in, well, actual people living normal lives.
Exactly. Confirming the effects in human dietary studies is the crucial step for turning these findings into solid recommendations for you.
Right. And wasn't there a great quote from Dr. Marco that kind of summed it all up nicely?
Yeah, she said a little bit of sauerkraut could go a long way.
I like that. Simple, but powerful.
It really captures the idea. It suggests that you don't necessarily need huge amounts. Even regular, smaller additions of fermented foods could potentially make a meaningful difference to your gut health over time.
Okay, so let's wrap this up for you listening. The main takeaway here seems to be that sauerkraut is, well, it's way more than just pickled cabbage or a tangy side.
Definitely. That fermentation process is key. It creates these beneficial compounds, these metabolites, that seem to actively support gut health.
And this latest research highlights its potential to help protect those crucial intestinal cells and boost the kind of metabolites associated with the healthy gut microbiome already.
That's the core finding, yes. And while, more research is coming, particularly those human trials,
Right, we need those.
the current evidence is certainly encouraging. It suggests that adding fermented foods like sauerkraut to your regular eating habits could be a pretty simple, accessible way to potentially give your digestive health a nice boost.
It really does make you think, doesn't it? If something seemingly as basic as fermented cabbage holds these kinds of potential benefits, Well, it makes you wonder what other everyday foods you eat might have overlooked health connections.
That's a great point.
Maybe something for you to ponder what's hiding in plain sight in your own diet that could be doing more for your well-being than you realize. A little food for thought, perhaps.